Welcome to the Construction Brothers Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Campbell, and with me, like he is every week, my brother, Eddie Campbell.
What's up, Tyler?
Not much, Eddie. Well, this week we're talking what's new in construction tech. Guys, I'm on cup number 2 of coffee today. I'm feeling good. Coming off of this great call with Tyler that we had the other day. And I know some of the stuff we're going to dive into, and it's going to be fun. Tyler, how's it going, man?
Great. Happy to be here.
Heck yeah, man. Well, all right. So set the stage for us. Who are you? What do you do? You work at DPR, right?
I do. Yeah. So, like I said, my name is Tyler Williams. I lead field innovation for DPR Construction. Prior to taking on this role, I was a superintendent. Before that, it was a PM. I've been an estimator, union carpenter. So I've kind of cut my teeth through the construction world. My dad had a company when I was super young. So I've been kind of in the trades, sweeping, pounding nails for pretty much my whole life. And finally got to a point in my career about 4 years ago where I was like, running projects awesome, but I'm missing something, right? I was missing the passion, right? I felt like I was just building the same thing over and over, and which is great if that's your cup of tea. But I was like, I want to do more. I want to have more impact. And DPR has an internal innovation team, and found out about them about a year into being at DPR. And I was like, I'm going to be on that team one day. And it took about 2.5 years. And I think it was close to 6, presentations and presenting my case and saying, hey, I need to be on here. Before they finally were like, fine, we're tired of hearing you. You have some good points. And we're going to give you 6 months to do whatever you think that you can do over here. So I had recognized a gap, right? DPR is a self-performed builder. Over 51% of our revenue comes from the work that we put in place with union carpenters in some markets, non-union laborers, operators, what have you. And I just recognized this gap in between technology, right? Innovation, and then what was impacting our frontline workers. And I was like, light bulb, I used to be all that. How about I be the liaison, kind of coordinate, be a filter, and I be part of your team as a field innovator? And they're like, I like your idea. Tell us more, right? So 6 different times later, in persistence, right? Got me a spot, and they said, we're going to give you 6 months, try it on the West Coast, and we'll go from there. And 2 years, 3 months later, I'm still in the same role, and kind of picking up steam. So I think one thing that's new in the industry is a position like mine. My understanding is not any other GCs are kind of, we'll say, investing in this field innovation focus, building engagement, bridging gaps, breaking down barriers like we are over here. And I'm actually having the best 2+ years in my career that I've ever had. So
yeah, man, that's awesome. I love the fact that you came from the field though.
Yeah.
A lot of people will come out of college and they'll go straight in technology roles, and there's kind of a disconnect that can happen there if you don't really have the field experience, which really impacts how you implement tech.
Definitely.
In the field, and how you approach people too, right? How you are able to kind of build relationships with the people and make sure it's being implemented properly.
That's 100%. I think kind of my street cred goes a long ways. Where I can come on a job, my boots are dirty, my hard hat's got stickers on it, right? I've even in the past, seen guys mucking concrete, and I'll be like, hey, give me that rake, and I'll get in there with them and get going and get after it. And you'll see them kind of look at you, but that type of leadership capital and that engagement that you're building, it just goes so far for rapport. And later on, and I like to cuss. I'm a little bit of a construction sailor, right? So you get in there and you speak the language, and you watch the barriers kind of come down a little bit. And there's 5 other people on our innovation team, but when we're in the field and we're together, I have an easier time talking to them, right, than some of the guys. We got a PhD on our team that invented concrete that literally goes on the moon, and probably the smartest individual I've ever known. And when we get on a site, it's awesome because we can use our experience, right? My field to kind of break the ice, and then him to just blow your mind with the stuff that's, out there in the world. So it's pretty rad.
It takes all types, man. It takes all types. That it's definitely good for creating some capital with your workers. Just being able to hop into the concrete with them, and it's good stuff. That's great stuff.
You've got the superintendent story too. Like I worked with my dad. Like I came up in construction. Like every good superintendent had to start when they were like 3.
Pretty much.
Like you had to start. I started in commercial construction, carrying shingles up a roof when I was 3 years old. Like that's where it's got to start.
Yeah. Figure it out, son.
Yeah. You can outpace anybody that comes into the trailer. Like I'm going to one up you. Just stop now.
Yep.
Like that's where it's got to be.
You held the flashlight for your dad all the time, right?
Oh, and
is that
and then it was always your fault too.
Yeah.
You remember that? Like that was I remember. It's like, hey, why didn't you tell me to turn off that breaker so I don't shock myself? I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm 9.
Oh, dude. All right. So today is really just kind of unearthing some of the new kind of technological advancements out there. And one of the things we love is hardware, like physical tools. Right. And so I'm hoping you got some of that. I think you do. We did talk about a few things the other day, but all right, let's kick it off for us, man. What are some of the shout outs? What are some of the people that are out there creating cool stuff right now?
I mean, there's quite a few, and I apologize if I miss you on this and don't call you out. But one thing when I took on this position, I wanted to be that conduit in between our field and the tool manufacturers. Like, hey, do we have people talking to these tool manufacturers and like saying, this is what we need, this sucks, right? Like change this, don't do that, give me this. And we didn't really. So I spent probably a year kind of beating on the doors of the Milwaukees, the Hiltis, the Makitas, the DeWalt, Stanley Black & Decker, just being like, who do I need to talk to? And finally got some open doors. Hilti was probably the first one that was like, we'd love to partner with you in DPR and figure this out. I would say Hilti is one of the more innovative companies, that does anything tool related. They got Smart Track, right? They got all this data now where they pulled us into a meeting it was about a year ago. And we're like, hey, we're about to release Neuron and Smart Track, right? And Smart Track, and we're going to have all this data available for you and whoever, for the user. It's like trigger pulls, it's torquing, it's overuse, it's underutilization, all that stuff. And I'm like, holy, that'd be awesome. But figuring out like how to digest all that data and then what is useful has been the hard point. But like what's rad about Hilti, right, is they'll call us and say, hey, I got a prototype. It's going to be in Southern California in 2 weeks. You have a project that we can use it on. We did that with some battery concrete vibrators. And we actually get the tool in the hand of the person that's the end user. And they're like, hey, this is great, right? I love that it's handheld, right? I don't need a backpack for this application. And one of the things we did with Hilti specifically was, you've heard of the Hilti exosuit?
Oh, yeah.
Exo. Yeah, the overhead lifting thing.
Eddie's used it. Eddie's put it on.
What'd you think, Eddie?
Oh, it was awesome. That was our little Jaibot race that we did. That was kind of the leg up I got to use the Exo, which was, it was helpful.
I got to use a robot. Eddie got to use an exoskeleton. Something wasn't fair, but hey,
life isn't.
Life isn't fair.
It was rigged.
It was totally rigged.
Well, what we loved about the partnership we had with Hilti when it came to the exosuit is we were involved in Exo number 1, right? We deployed it in several different markets, Washington, Texas, and the Northeast, and said, hey, we want you guys to try this. And we did a myriad of disciplines, right? We had concrete, we have some electricians, and then we had some laborers. I'm like, hey, we want you guys to test this, see what you think. Be honest with us. And ACT ceiling guys. And so we captured it, each one of those regions for like 5 days, right? And we interviewed the guys each day. We had them wear the exosuits. What did you like? What didn't you like? Like, how's it work? Fitment, like utilization, safety. So we had quite the laundry list of like pros and cons. And we took that with the Hilti development team and we're like, here it is. And we also figured out like, hey, this isn't a one size fits all tool. Like, not right now, it's not going to be adopted for like, I'm going to wear this all day, every day. It's more task specific, right? So that was a little bit of a light bulb learning moment for us. And then Hilti calls me up in I don't know, it was probably 7-8 months later. And it's like, hey, we have XO2 coming out. We want you to come to Plano, Texas and check this thing out. So they'd taken all of that feedback, you know, and some other feedback they gained from other general contractors, whatever, and said, hey, here's Exosuit 2 or O2, right? And we've incorporated new cuffs, right? We enclosed the little pulley systems on the back better. We did some molly straps on the belts, right? We like did all this cool stuff based on the feedback from your guys, right? So I've been like telling that story to our frontline folks for like the better part of a year, right? Like, you guys don't understand, but you can adjust the trends that are happening in the industry just by talking to us, right? By communicating and us being out in the field. So like it was super fun. You know, I think we're still in the kind of the same position with the XO2. Like it's better, it's still task specific, but we're on the right track, right? Where we're getting that end user feedback. We got it. We're capturing it. You know, we have the where we started and now where we are and where we're going, right?
So, all right. So many questions. Let's pause. Okay. All right. So all right. So the XO2 is still good for overhead work, right? That's kind of the core function.
I would say it's better now.
Okay. So did they add more tension to it? Like what makes it better, I guess?
They made it easier to dial the tension up and down, right? Because, you know, you could get stuck and you were just like this, right?
I can't put my arms down.
Yeah, I know. You're like, I don't know what to do with my hands, right? Ricky Bobby style.
Yeah.
And so they did that. Then they 3D encased the back little wing things, right? I don't know what you call them. Because what we found is there was some safety factors that they were getting caught up on things when guys were up kind of up in an MEP space. And so that was a huge thing. And then we're like, hey, the guys can't wear their tool bags with these things. Big problem. So they made the belt thicker, right? And I believe they put some molly straps on so you could attach a bag or like a screw gun holster kind of thing like that. So we're like, all right, we're moving in the right direction.
That's pretty sweet, man. So you've gotten a chance to be the feedback loop to the field. And I mean, Hilti, we've seen firsthand that they're very involved in doing that. Plano, is that like the fun land that they have down there where they like experiment with and play with everything?
Yeah. I know a couple guys, if you guys want to make a trip out there one of these days. So the individual, big shout out to Jordan Funk, right? He is our strategic partner when it comes from Hilti. So he is our relationship guy. And he lets us do all sorts of fun stuff. He's the guy that calls me and says, hey, we got a concrete vibrator we want to test. We got a new screw gun. XO2's coming out. They had this cool thing. I can't even talk about it but know that there's some more cool like tool tethering, ergo benefit type stuff coming out from Hilti that I literally, they took a video of me when they put it on me and won't let me share it. But I was like a kid in a candy store where I was like, this thing's rad. Oh my God. And like, I can't believe this. I can do with my hands. So like someday it'll come out and I'll be like, hey, that's what I was talking about, guys. So lots of fun stuff on the radar with Hilti. And like I said, I got like a list. So if you got more questions on Hilti, I can do a shout out to Jaibot. I was out there yesterday we have a project in Seattle. And it's the first project that we've done on the West Coast where we've done a platform of multi-trade layout. Crazy concept of like, hey, you're an MEP contractor. We're an electrician. We're a self-performed builder. We're going to do some ACT ceilings in here. We have like 4,900 overhead anchors that need to be drilled on this floor, and we have 12 of them. Maybe we should partner up. And, everybody puts their points into the model, right? We start talking to a total station, and we broke a barrier that was pretty good between the unions kind of holding on to that work, So the McKinstry MEP contractor in Seattle, they were like, hey, we'll do floors. I believe it's like 5 and 6. And then McDonald Miller's on another TI, and they're going to do the other floors, right? Then our ACT guys are doing them on another. So we've split up this work package to where I'm drilling your holes because I'm running the Jaibot because I have the majority on that floor. You're doing them on the next one, but it's all integrated in the model, talking to the total station. That Jaibot's averaging over 490 holes a day, right? When we're talking close to 5,000 on a floor, think of like the ergonomic and safety advantages like that has specifically. So I was on the site yesterday, and McKinstry happened to be running it yesterday. I go, hey, give me the download on this thing. Like, what do you think? And he's like, it's freaking rad. I was like, I need a little bit more. Like, what do you like about it? And he was like, man, I'm just kind of hanging out. Like, it does all the work. It sprays the dots. It drills the hole. I go, what do you need from it? He goes, I need another one. I go, you need another what? And he goes, I need another Jaibot so that I can do two. I could easily do two of these things and we'll be done twice the time. So I was like, all right, now we're on the right path. When guys are like, oh, and if it had another arm, so they're already like innovating what this machine that just splashed on the industry could do next, right? So like I said, I have the greatest job. I get to travel around, talk to these guys and go, this is the coolest, right? They're always happy to see us.
We saw something the other day that was a lawnmower. What was it called? Do you remember what it was called?
The RC mower.
RC mower. Yeah. So this was it was crazy. There's a video, maybe we can find it and put it in the show notes so people can look at it, but it was a mowing system. This guy just pulls out one mower. He goes out and he mows the perimeter, and then he hits a button, and then the mower takes off. And then he goes over to the trailer and he pulls out another mower, mows a perimeter, hits a button, and that one takes off. Goes back to the trailer, pulls out a third one, hits, does the same thing, hits the button, and he has 3 mowers out there that are autonomously taking care.
No way.
Yeah, dude, it was sick. And so like we're looking at that, and that's back to kind of what we were talking about. It was our $1 million idea. I can't remember which episode it was. It was like there are going to be people that their entire job is just robotics operator. That's a new thing that's going to be happening in the industry. And so it's really cool to hear that, one of those guys on site was like, yeah, give me another one. Because that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to run 2 or 3 of these things and run in 1,000 holes a day and, be able to kick back and really, get a ton of work done. So it's this cool stuff that's coming down the pipe, man.
It is cool. And, it's taken a little bit, right, to break down some barriers, prove the concept of having a robot on site, right? And it started with Dusty, right? You guys have heard about Dusty, the layout robot.
Heck yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So on the innovation team, right, DPR's innovation team, we have a robotics lead. His name's Henny Rodell, and he's the dude who invented space concrete, right? So super intelligent guy. And he's been building this platform within DPR and our strategic procurement and like rental arm, OES equipment, where we have a bunch of these robots now. We have a bunch of Dusties, and they travel to different spots of the country. We're now training operators to run Dusty on our sites and do multi-trade layout. We call SPW, self-perform work packages, where they're doing soffits, door openings, wall layout, all sorts of cool stuff. And the first time we like tried it was in the Bay Area. We're like, hey, we got this cool robot that prints stuff on the floor. And we brought in a field engineer, and it was like immediately rejected because he didn't have the street cred. And we're like, no. And that's kind of where I had to kind of use my expertise and be like, hey, we have to use somebody that came from the field, that is a layout specialist, right? Preferably a union, right? So when we're talking West Coast stuff, otherwise they're just going to kick you off the job. They're going to be like, you're taking my work, you're taking my job, I want nothing to do with this, and I won't support it. And they were like, kicking it over, and this is all sorts of different trades, and once we got a union carpenter trained up on how to run this, that could walk the walk, speak the talk, and like saw that, and then people saw that this was another tool for their tool belt. So now I'm layout guy, right? I can still run my tool station. I can do my whole thing. Now I can run a robot at the same time, and I can check the points and do that stuff. I'm like Superman on a site now. People love it. But it took that learning curve of like, what are we missing here? And it had to be somebody from the field that really projected it to different regions and different adoption areas, right? So it was a big learning curve.
These tools are not new to us,
No.
but the angle that's really cool and new to the show is that the adoption curve, like real people in construction actually using the thing for, adding value to how buildings are built. We've talked a lot about the hype, the marketing, the top end, but like nobody's talking about how people see that robot and they get mad because it's taking its job, or they're just like, whatever, that's stupid, and they're kicking it.
Yeah.
Right. And we talked to Tessa, and she's like, yeah, we had to put googly eyes on it to make it cute because people were like scared of it. Right.
Right.
So, I mean,
yeah, we know Tessa real well.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that actually getting that stuff in the field and then getting that feedback that they have. Yeah, that's user experience. That's how we're going to make these things better, because those are the guys that are actually using it. These engineers, they got to have it in order to improve. They absolutely have to have it from the people that are doing the thing. So I want to hear what else you got, man. What other things have you seen?
So Tyler and I know he loves this one. I'm going to bring up Vita Inclinata because you talked about the angle of how to get this thing on a site, right? So Eddie, not sure if he shared it with you, but Vita Inclinata, big shout out to those guys. They are a crane stabilization solution.
It's so
They
cool.
started in the aerospace industry, and they used to, like a litter on the bottom of a rescue helicopter. It gets in that rotor wash and just freaking spins, right? So they're like, hey, how can we fix this? So Vita gets involved, and they figured out this little Vita pilot, and it was like 3.5 feet by I think 3.5 feet, little box, right? And it has battery powered fan thrusters that are opposite of each other, and a little remote control from the guy up in the helicopter can control that, or somebody on the ground, and just hit a little button and those fan thrusters kick on and like, and that's literally, you can quote me on that. That's how it sounds. and it'll stabilize that litter. So you can go onto their site and you can see this race, and like your Jaibot one, right? And they have a traditional helicopter doing it with the litter just straight line up, and that thing's spinning. And then they use the Vita thing, and it goes up just seamlessly, gets the litter into the helicopter, they're down. So they do 4 in the time that it took them to do 1 in the traditional fashion. So like, they're like, hey, what else can we do with this? So we got involved with Vita a few years ago, and they said, hey, we're going into the construction industry, and we think this can work on cranes. And we're like, hell yeah, it can. So started these conversations, and now they have the pilot, which is the 3.5 by 3.5. So really good for like maybe a small HVAC unit or just quick picks, maybe even a mobile crane could put it on their crane, right? Or their truck. And then you got a 20-foot spreader bar with, it's a lot bigger, big fan thrusters. You got a 40 ton. So now we're starting to gain with capacity. And we found a project in Dirte, California, and Reliable Crane was our crane contractor, right? And we approached them with this solution. And we're like, hey, what do you think about us trying this on it's a DPR project? And they're like, I don't know. So we had to get Vita to basically put this 10-ton spreader bar thing on a truck, bring it out to Dirte, and we did it in the Reliable Crane yard. No joke. Within 4 minutes of training, the rigger, the crane rigger had been, he's 15 years in the industry or something like that. Grabs his thing. He's like, this is pretty cool. Starts using the remote control, and they're starting to, a truck showed up and they started unloading a tower crane jib. Just 4 minutes of training. All of a sudden these guys are lifting loads, using the thing, spinning it, because it has like a load stabilization. It has a load rotate, like a position hold. Like, so if you're doing repetitive picks, and these guys, this thing's awesome. And one of the big things with Vita that they want to do is work to reduce or eliminate taglines when using their system, right? So DPR, we've had some instances in the past, and we know the industry has as well, where guys get caught up in a tagline, right? They'll get lifted 30, 40 feet off the deck before anybody knows, or before they even realize it, right? And so, yes, taglines have their place in the industry, always on, safety first, but sometimes it can actually hinder safety, right? So we're like, looking, if we can use these in tandem, we could probably save some people. So it took us almost a year to work with our risk folks at DPR to like, no, this is actually going to reduce our risk. They're like, well, what if it fails? Well, we got the tagline, we're fine. What if the remote control spin out of control? We're like, what if the wind picks up on a crane and it does it anyways? Like, these are redundant arguments. Finally, we got them to sign off, and Reliable essentially said, hey, we're going to take this on. We'll put it under our insurance. We're going to work through this thing, and we think this has a real spot in the industry. So now we got a large general contractor on board with this. We have a great crane company that's on board, And we got it on a project, and we're actually working with Cal OSHA on an experimental variance to reduce or eliminate the use of taglines with the system. So like we're partnering with all sorts of people to take like what is a pretty typical operation on a construction site and make it safer, right? Just by adding the new solution. It's one of my favorite ones, and probably the one we've worked one of the hardest on in the last year.
At first mention,
Yes.
you described how this was using, basically bursts of air, kind of like you painted the picture like as in space, right?
Yeah.
And so kind of envisioning that, I'm like, what an amazing and practical idea. Like this isn't something that you're like, wow, that's mind blowing. And that I could, have something to run counter.
Yeah.
To what's happening that I don't like on a load that's suspended and I don't have much control over.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like we've not done that. And I have that available.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
Holy cow.
Well, I didn't realize that it was remote controlled until you just said that, because we kind of talked about it a little bit the other day. But I'm thinking of like drone technology. You have the ability to just get it to sit in place, right? Like I can put it out in the wind and my drone will stay in one spot. So I think eventually this might not need to have a remote. I don't know. It's still useful to have a remote though, I guess, to spin it either way you need to spin it. But
yeah, because you think of like, how many lifts you have that are coming up the side of the building, right? As the building comes, and you got limitations either way. Like you can put it in position hold with one button push, right? And it'll lock it in there and it'll spin like crazy. And our understanding is it's effective into like 35-mile-an-hour winds. So now you're, typical tower crane, when you're 33 miles an hour, 30, 33, you're like shutting things down, right? And so we're right there with that operation, making it safer. And then the one thing I didn't mention about the remotes is that there's like a brother-sister type remote. So for blind pick situations, you can have the guy on the ground, load takes off, gets up the building, or he's controlling it, gets on his radio and says, all right, passing it off. The brother remote takes over from there, and you can actually land a blind pick, still using the remote control. So it's like Eddie said, like this is kind of simple and not like crazy, but like just the application and now the adoption is what I think is truly innovative in how we're doing this.
Yeah, why didn't I think of that?
I know, right?
Why haven't we thought of this already?
Well, we have. We just didn't think of the application.
We just didn't apply it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, when I was talking about space and like in the Apollo missions, or any spacecraft right now, they have those thrusters on the side, right, to rotate and do everything. And this is like immediately what I thought of. Like, this is just thrusters on a spaceship, right? And so we've had the tech, we just haven't applied it back over. That's why I'm so excited about looking outside of construction, right? That's why I always push to look outside of it and say, hey, let's look at space. Let's look at automotive. Let's look at, all these different industries and see what they're doing. What can we apply back to our industry? So good call. Go look outside the industry. See what's cool out there. Maybe you'll find a gym like this and be like, oh, duh. This works great for us. We could totally use it.
Yeah. How many other robots can we do with this, right? You think of like auto manufacturing. We're starting to apply so much more prefabrication. It's one of our strategic missions over the next 10 years is like, how can we prefab stuff in a way to where it shows up, it's already quality controlled, it's inspected, and we're just clicking it together, right? And just we can control so much more that way. And again, simple concept, but the execution is what's hard.
Right. Well, Petting House on the manufacturing side, didn't they post a video the other day?
Yeah, I picked up on it and commented. It looks exactly like the automotive industry.
Explain what it does.
But you got a welding fitting line, right? So where you used to have, a fitter necessary to go and actually put the shear tab on the side of the column and weld it out. This is actually fitting the plate and welding it out for you. So now the fitting and welding is just automated and happening, which I would say is going to drive the burden for properly modeling welds and BIM and
you have to,
SCSU. You got 2 times the amount of info that you're now putting in there. But that happened when we started driving things through CNC. or
Mhm.
plasma machines became a bigger deal. So, things we almost fumble things forward. Like that was something I was thinking about as we're trying to figure out prefab, for instance. We're kind of clunky, right? The first implementations of these things they're clunky, and we're trying it out, and they're on the bleeding edge, and it's not always pretty, but eventually we start figuring out and honing, and then the efficiency comes, and like the feedback that you're getting from the field comes back, and we adjust and we adapt, and we don't make that mistake the next time. So it's easy to kind of throw water on that fire and be like, nah, we know how to do this thing, but we'll hone and we'll figure out. We've seen lead come a long way, like just sustainability stuff, right? We're more interested in actual sustainability, not just some greenwash like replica of sustainability. We want it to actually be a real thing. Prefab, we want it to be a good thing that's actually making headway on the job, adding QC, adding to safety, making things go faster, not just, hey, I did prefab, thump my chest, and no,
look at
get
me.
The feedback.
Congrats.
Right? We're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're great. Okay. All right. Next, man. What else you got?
So I was at World of Concrete here, 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Jealous.
And one of the other tool manufacturers that big shout out to is Milwaukee. Milwaukee was kind of more known for their MEP, right, type tool applications. And in the last couple of years, they've made leaps and bounds to their MX line, which is concrete and general contracting type tools. And so they started working with us a little bit more. They now have a MX fuel is what they're calling it, walk behind concrete trowel, 24 and 36 inch fan spinning from a battery platform. Like you didn't think that we were going to get there, right? And they also got a concrete screed, right, that comes in 4, 6, and 12 inch bars that it'll run this thing. So we've been testing them both on the East Coast and on the West Coast, and our dudes are loving them. They're like, this is great. I don't have to worry about emissions anymore. I don't have a bunch of cord issues, right? Just where Milwaukee's going, and they're another one we're plugged into, and they're like calling us and say, hey, I would say that they're rapidly prototyping things because they're aggressive towards this GC market. So they're super hungry to hear what do you guys need? What do you want? And so cordless concrete vibrator, this battery, right? We wanted the trowel, we wanted the screed, and that was a year and a half ago. And look, it's starting to hit the market. And we didn't even know that it was gonna, right? They're hush hush, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, here we go. Surprise. So I was pretty pumped about just the MX tool line that they're coming out with.
Did you ever have to use one of those on site?
What, like
during your
during your being on the concrete crew, having to you pour day, vibrate the concrete in, and having to deal with that, which is a pain.
Well, what's the battery life on that too? Because a lot of those things are going all day, every day too. Is it an interchangeable battery sort of system?
Yeah, you got to just swap it out. You can do essentially not a hot swap, but you can you just turn it off, put it back in.
Right.
But they're getting like 4 to 6 hours, right, on a lot of the stuff. Or I don't know the cubic feet or the square feet that they're doing, but it's effective, I guess is what I should say.
Yeah, that's kind of seems to be one of the problems is you get the equipment a little bit bigger if they're not a hot swappable battery. Then you run into the problem of having all right, let me drag this thing over here and I got to plug it in and let it sit for 4 more hours. But it's good to know that it's a hot swappable solution too, which for Milwaukee, it makes sense that they've already got those platforms.
As we're talking about tools, right? What's another tool that we need is to access work. So we, JLG has an innovation team as well. So we connected about a year ago, and they called me up and they said, hey, we're launching this JLG 760 self-leveling boom lift. Have you guys seen this yet?
No.
It's 4x4. I think it's a 10-degree slope it can do. And they sent it out to one of our sites in Southern California, and we got to test it for a month. The thing is rad. So you'll be going full boom extension, and it will self-level itself. You don't have to do the button. You don't have to crib it up. You don't have to bypass the alarm, all that crazy stuff to get it to do what you want. It does it for you, and it's super user-friendly. Like I said, 4x4. 70-foot reach. And I'm sure that the platform is only going to grow, but just that was a cool one. I was pretty pumped about.
I'm actually surprised that hasn't been done yet. I don't know why. Like that just doesn't seem like something that wouldn't have been out there already. That shows how much I know.
The more you know, right?
The more you know. That's why you're here, Tyler. That's why you're here.
Yeah, I'm here all week. Let's see. Another one. So Miva Formworks, they're a similar, steel type formwork that has an alkaline panel and they're swappable, all this stuff. But what got my attention at World of Concrete was their VR training. And they had this VR headset sitting there and this display. And I kind of like to get into the weeds, right? I'm like, hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing? What's up with this thing? Like, oh, it's our VR headset, so you can get in, you can see all of our formwork. I go, hey, can this train people on your parts and pieces and, load stabilization, like all the things? And he was like, I don't know. I'm like, how about we do that? And so he puts me in the headset and we start like walking around the thing. And, I'm like a zombie at World Concrete. And so now their training department is going to work with DPR on like how we can train our people in the formwork that we're starting to use before it even hits the site. So we're going to shorten this learning curve, right? We're going to increase the safety piece of it because now we're aware and apprised of, what we're going to be messing with. And we can actually walk through like our project in their model and the formwork. It's like this is just cool stuff.
That's VR is something I feel like we're still trying to figure out too, but the training aspect of it, that's pretty interesting. We saw Hamza Shambari. He presented on that down at Procore or down at Groundbreak. It's really cool to see the first couple iterations of this and how it's helping people in the field. It'll be really interesting to see how it matures though. I feel like we're still figuring that one out.
Well, I apologize for not knowing the name right offhand, but there is a boom lift training that we've been doing with some of our foremen. And I would say that it's a great tool is my disclaimer. However, we put one of our foremen in it that was like total skeptic. And he's like, this is stupid. I'm not doing this. You can't understand. Put him in the headset and we filmed him. So he starts walking through the controls of the boom lift and he gets in it and he starts driving it. And all of a sudden it hits a bump in the VR headset and the dude literally falls over, hits the wall, rips the headset off. And he was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Like I was in it. I thought I was tipping over and I was dead. And we're like, that's right. Right. So we can utilize some of this VR stuff to give, real life scenarios, put them in a really situation, let them feel how it's going to feel and know what to do. Right. And like, okay, let's not hit the hole. Right. Let's make sure we're tied off. I just think it was hilarious.
Be honest. Did you push him? Did you push him? I mean, be honest here. Okay.
I did not.
No. Okay.
It's funny because this guy was like total, like this is like total naysayer. And all of a sudden rips it off. And he was like, yes, I get it now.
That seems to be a big part of it though, is getting buy-in from, obviously this is a big part of what you do is buy-in from the field. Like how is I know that's one example of it. Is it been wholesale? Everybody's been pretty excited to adopt it, or are there some people that just walk away from it still kind of skeptical? Like,
for which one?
Any sort of VR application, but for the training one specifically, are they liking it? Or
I would say they're liking it. I think it kind of shows our craft that may not be as plugged into technology, that there's a place for them with this. Right. And maybe they don't have a HoloLens at home and they're not playing VR stuff. But like now that companies like DPR are starting to be like, we can leverage this technology to make you better and kind of introduce it to you without you having to, there's no cost to entry. That's where I think people are starting to go like, they care about me, right? They want me to have this training. They're investing in like we're talking cutting edge type stuff. Like nobody else is doing this, right? Like how many of us have been through like the typical United Rentals or Sunbelt and you go out there and you do the test and you get your certificate. It's not fun. It's not cool. It's not new. It's like, all right, I did this last year. Now I think they're like, oh, do I get to do the headset again? And I just think we're trying to make construction cool. Like, I think that's a huge thing that we can all do better. And I was talking to our comms and marketing places, like we need to do something to where like we're hyping construction. Like you can get in here and you can do some really neat stuff. You're not breaking your back all the time anymore. Like we have these freaking robots. You can use headsets to walk your job virtually. And, and we got robots that are, standing up walls and crane thrusters and like that. Like, I think we're approaching to where like the cool factor.
Heck yeah. All right. So that was VR that we were just talking about. What about MR? So mixed reality. So the HoloLens and all of that. What sort of stuff are you seeing there? Because I'm teeing you up for this because we talked about something the other day with metal studs that I want you to kind of tell Eddie about.
Yes, there's a company out there, and I'm just going to hit it home run right now, Tyler.
Okay, get it.
So Hyperframe, big shout out to these guys. They're out of Berkeley. If you know Todd Brady, not relation to Tom Brady. However, the Brady company, right? They're huge into metal stud, drywall type patents, framing, all sorts of applications. So they teamed up, and now Hyperframe is using a HoloLens technology, QR codes, and very proprietary type tooling on the ends of their studs. So if you think of like an elevator stud, right? Take a full height stud, and then just at the end of it, you're using this little like spring thing. I don't know all the terms, the technical stuff, right? And you just no ladder, no tool, nothing. You use this HoloLens, you scan a QR code, and it tells you, oh, you need to go left to put this piece here. And literally you go in and you click the top in, take the bottom, click it in, done. And that's it. You go to the next one and it tells you which one to put in. If it's a jam stud, if it's a header stud. So these parts and pieces, they're making it so that you don't have to be a 4-year journeyman, right? And all of a sudden need to know all this interior systems type stuff. Now, like we took a couple of our leaders that, maybe been a little bit out of the trades for a little bit, maybe a little rusty, put them in it. Sure, they grab that thing and just start clicking and going. So we did, I think it was a 20-foot wall section in like 3 minutes. No joke. I could be maybe 3.5. But where we're going with it, mixed reality, is now we're starting to leverage lower barrier of entry into the trade, right? So now you don't need all this training. You can just grab and go. You can put on a headset. Might take you a minute to get a little bit used to it, but it's literally directing you on how to do a job that you can now be more efficient at. There's less safety factors, right? We're not cutting a bunch of stuff. So Hyperframe, they call it HyperBIM. So Eddie, you might get excited about this, right? So now they're modeling the framing on the floor, and then they're creating work packages based on these priority walls, different levels, and then send it out to the job, and it's packaged, shows up on a pallet. And then you just start scanning QR codes and it tells you right where to go, right? You got to, your top and bottom track. And that's all, I think it's called a BIM locker, to where there's an anchored system up in the ceiling. And then the top and bottom track just literally click in. And then you're standing studs in no time. I'll pause for questions because there's a lot there.
Yeah. You said a 20-foot wall section in 3 minutes. That means 20 foot tall.
20 foot long.
20 feet long.
I believe we were 12 feet tall. So where you typically use like a baker scaffolding, and you got one guy up, one guy feeding them, and he's doing the scoot thing. None of that.
Yeah, that was my intrigue. Is like, I mean, we've done this before. I've done this work before, and it's always a trick. Yeah, kind of a 2-man job. You got your baker scaffold. How tall? How far up are you going on that baker scaffold? Baker scaffold's not always the most stable thing in the world because they're smaller. Not as wide. And so, but yeah, you're trying to move along the wall, and you've got attachments up top. So this keeps you from having to attach up top, right? You're clicking in up top.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so on the top track, there'd be like a little I'm not going to be able to explain it very well. It's a little piece that comes on the top track as it comes out. And then basically a married up piece kind of looks like a little click, and it just clicks in, click, and you're rolling, and just bam, bam, bam. And then if you say you mess up, right, you take this little tool and you can actually pop the spring, pull the stud out, right? So
this is a no screw solution then?
No screw. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the click, bam.
Well, yeah, I mean I understand the click. I'm just reiterating that point. I just want to make sure that I completely understand it. No screws. Dang.
No screws. And you're still using 16, 20 gauge studs. So like we're still using typical interior framing right?
When I saw it the other day, I thought like, okay, so I saw the telescopic piece basically that it expands out, which we've seen that before. So it expands out. I didn't realize that you wouldn't have to screw it in though. I thought it would just fit to place and then you'd just lock it by screwing it. That's sick.
It's a kit of parts. Like they're using this as a kit of parts. And I keep seeing again and again, it's this install side of things that it's aided and abetted by pre-planning, prefabrication, kitting, and all of this. But then there's almost going to be more demand on like an installation type of process. You've taken a lot of the, I'll say, skill out of having to do that work. If I can put MR on, look at it, know where it goes, and just virtually, I'm just listen, follow directions. Like I'm just clicking and sticking, and here we go.
The spacing's already established too. If you're clicking,
all the thinking has been done for me.
Your openings too, right? So it'll come on your jam studs, right? It's going to have the same technology as the header connection, where you're clicking the header in and you're walking away from an opening.
This is good though. I mean, like we don't want to have to think and improvise constantly in the field. That's the thing that slows us down.
Yeah.
That's the thing that becomes very wasteful. So this takes that improv out of the picture. Like the thinking's been done. I love that. I love the ease of install, but I love that thinking's been done beforehand. And there was a plan, and that plan's now just being implemented.
Yeah. The pre-planning, right? And the integration into the model and all the other pieces, right? That's what I'm super excited about too, is how many times we forgot there's a big effing duct that goes right through here. Okay, right. And now it's all integrated. So now we're going to push the pace to BIM to be like, hey, make sure we're fully integrated, right? And coordinated prior to us releasing this package, because once we do, right, we're going to be moving way past it, way faster, right?
Oh, that's where we've lived for a while, is we expect what goes in a model to be built. Mm-hmm. Like we have zero expectation that anything we model won't burn us. Everything can burn us. Everything will burn us if it's wrong. So it has to be right. But in having done that, the pre-planning and thinking, a lot of that is done. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, it goes back to Lego, it goes back to so many things we talked about. So
it's like Lego, man.
It is, but okay. I have a feeling like there's got to be some more cool things, and I want to keep hearing about
keep
them.
going,
so,
keep going,
come on.
So there's a ton, right? I would say something that I like to do is, yes, we have all these cool techs and technology, but I think there is a space too to innovate people practices, right? And, we talked about engagement and building trust and, reducing barriers in the industry. And so this isn't new, right? But QR codes, one thing that was positive about COVID, right, is we got really good at using QR codes. So now this technology, right, that was innovative in its, 2 years ago, how rapidly we've changed, is now being scaled and utilized on multiple platforms, right? So now we're scanning it with a HoloLens, and we're putting pieces into a wall now. And another way we're looking at this is we had an internal innovation. So you can't buy this one on the market. However, the idea is out there now. We have a door frames and hardware team, right? And all they do the pre-benching, right? They'll coordinate the openings. They take it to a warehouse and they'll put on all the hardware, all that stuff before the door even hits the site. So one of our super innovative field superintendents was like, I want to use QR codes to coordinate in the field. So I want stickers that are coordinated to a specific opening. And we're going to put the sticker on the slab as soon as layout's done. So now, as soon as layout's done, anybody that has a camera phone can now walk to that opening on site, scan it, and the information instantly pops up on, this is a 3070 door. You need low voltage on the left, right? There's security latch here, right? And we're starting to reduce the barrier of sharing information to the field. So what normally this is on a big site in Nashville. And this first phase had like 12 or 1,500 doors, right? And, I would say we've kind of accepted like, maybe there's like 75% are good. Another 25% rework, and we're kind of messing with because there's changes. We took like 1,250 openings and we only had to redo 5. Like just by sharing information more freely, right?
That's
and we again, right? Our team is considered super disruptive because they're like, whoa. We're just going to give that information away. We're like, dude, they're the guys building it. Like they're not going to take it home and, sell it. It's a freaking door opening. Like, let's be honest here. And, being able to break that barrier down and watching multiple trades utilize a QR code that we just provided was like, just, brain exploded. Cause I was like, this is so simple and so easy for us to share this information. And now these folks in the field are empowered. Now they feel like they're part of the process. They can QC and check their own stuff. They can ask questions when they're like, hey, this doesn't add up. Your QR code's telling me this, but yet we have a 7-0 opening. Like, what's the problem here? And just that, I guess I'm trying to beat the information sharing drum, right? Like our folks in the field aren't dumb. Like, let's leverage them. Let's give them that information versus holding on to it and just being the keeper of all things, right? And having that superintendent control issue.
Well, that's real information sharing right there.
Yeah.
Like that's actual information sharing. The thing that we hear about a lot is like, oh, you could create a user account. I don't know. That's a bogging down point for so many people, right? Like we have experienced that as detailers where it's like we get a link from a GC that's, to a Procore thing or whatever. And you got to create a login. You got to do this. You got to do that. Real information sharing is just saying, scan this thing and here's the information. Here you go. It's nice and neat, nice and easy. It's a user experience problem.
Yeah.
Right. And so I love that you guys have just broken this down and said, no, you need the freaking information. Here it is. So on the back end of that, I'm going to get in the weeds a little bit here. So
get it.
So managerially, where are you pushing them to? Are you going to push them over to like Procore or whatever? Like on that site, what were you guys doing?
So that was, I think it's Autodesk ACC, right? So everything gets pushed through. So you're having this platform that we would already be using, right? Architects, money, all sorts of stuff are all living in this. And now we've just basically taken just a little snippet of that information that's already on this platform and then just given it to more people. So now we have a company called vConstruct. This is in India strategically because they're 12 hours difference than us. So they will do a lot of our VDC type stuff, some BIM modeling. They'll do stuff opposite of our time. So now I can send a request over and all of a sudden this company pumps it out by the time I get back to work at 7 a.m. Like, here you go. Here's your thing. So we use them to integrate a lot of this information to where it'll push and pull onto like the ACC platform or and go from there. And it seems to be helping a lot.
So I scan it. It's going to take me to a specific like door schedule, or a specific spot on the blueprint or on the drawing, and just say, "Here you go. This is what you got."
And then maybe there's like 3 or 4 pages to it, right?
Right. Okay. So is it a broken out like a individual plan? Like
yes,
you say like a 4-pager. So it's like an individual plan of like, here's the door, here's the electrical, here's this, that, and the other.
Yeah, exactly. Tomorrow, you know how you would have to go to how many different sheets, right?
Right. Yeah.
To try to go, okay, that opening is this. Now I need to go electrical drawings. I need to check this.
Right.
We've cut and sliced and diced it so that it all lives in one little spot to where you scan it and it shows you are here. Basically, you're at door opening A2102, right? And then the next like little just swipe would be, okay, this door needs to be 3070. Here's your hardware, right? And go from there. So we really simplified it.
So you would have a set of like 50 different variations of packages, and you're linking to each one of those packages based off of the door. Okay. I just kind of was curious how you guys were getting at that. And that's stupid simple. It's just, it's nice and neat.
Yeah. So yeah, that one, I'm pretty proud of that one because that one came from our field folks, right? And like just telling that story and being like, they knew there was a better mousetrap. And, this guy was a door frames and hardware guy for like 20 plus years. He didn't have the technical ability to, create these links. But what he did have the ability to do is be like, I know you do. And you do. And he brought them together and is like brought his concept to life. And we applied it on this mega project And it's just been going from there. And now we're kind of leveraging that same type of idea on, slicing and dicing wall elevation. So now you can see, that there's supposed to be all this roughing in here, right? Here's your backing plan. Like here's the outlets there are, like all that. So we're, again, using it to share information that's easily accessible. The other one, this one I believe is going to splash the industry like nobody's business. Rod Radar, company out of Israel. They are a spinoff of Caterpillar, and they've partnered with AMA, who builds excavator buckets. You can now have a heads-up display inside your excavator. You have right now, the alpha version 1, right, is an 18 or 24 inch bucket. And this bucket has picture like a little window on it. Like if you were to knuckle down and basically set the bucket flat on the ground, it now has this like window inside the bucket that can live dig radar underneath you. And you can actually start seeing what sort of MEP do we have buried here. And live heads up display takes about 5 seconds to hold the bucket down. You have a live display of here's how far it is, here how deep it is. It can't tell you what it is yet, but the level of accuracy of finding an underground utility is like they're finding stuff that our typical, layout guys and whatnot aren't finding. So I'll just stop because it's that cool.
Okay. Yeah. Just drop mic. Walk away. That's pretty freaking sweet.
Yeah. I'm open for questions.
I mean, this replaces who? Like, I mean, honestly, like trying to find utilities.
Right.
This replaces somebody, the guy out there with the little, spray can. Like that's what I get.
That's
right?
the best that we do right now is here's your spray can.
I would say that it emphasizes that individual. We're not going to replace them because specifically at DPR, we're not changing our dig process, right? We should still do our locates, right? Do our due diligence, find out if there's any underground stuff that we know of, right? Call them out, they paint the ground. But that guy always leaves, right? Or gal. They leave and you start digging. And maybe it rains, your marks are all weird, you can't understand it. Now we're using Rod Radar, live dig radar, looking at that thing that they already told us is there, and we're setting it on there and we're like, it's not there. It's actually 3 feet over, right? Or spot on, let's keep going. So now we're digging with confidence, right? And you dig a little bit, you're unsure, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, let's check again. Or let's take the bucket and we're going to scan around ourselves. So we're going to spin the bucket all the way around 360. Okay, cool. I'm free to dig. And they move on. And that guy's still holding the shovel, still looking at it, still checking as we go. One of the companies we work with, right, as an industry is Haskell. Haskell tried this first and they're like, hey, this is pretty rad. So I get Cutler on the phone and I'm like, tell me more about this. And he said, when we're using this, we've had 0 utility strikes. Utility strikes for in our industry is one of the biggest problems we have. So when we look at issues for EHS, it's either cut through, dig through, or core through are like some of our top 3 things that happen on a site. And you're like, oh crap. So now we're trying to take that and basically eliminate it or create more confidence to where we're like, no, we're gonna adjust how this is in the industry. City of Aspen has basically already said you won't be digging in the city of Aspen without this in the future.
This is so cool, man. I don't even have any questions because it's just so self-explanatory. I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, of course, because that just makes sense. Why not? Dude, you've brought some great stuff for our listeners today. I really appreciate that. I think we can probably keep going, but we'll pause here because I want to leave people hanging. I want them to come back and listen next time you come back. So, all right, it's time for our megaphone question, though. All right. So, with all of that said, and all of the things that you've seen out there, dude, what is something that if we gave you a megaphone for the whole industry to hear? What would you want to say? What would you want to tell people? What would you want to just leave in their brains to act on this week?
Man, great question for one. I would say if I had a megaphone, and my wife probably thinks I do all the time anyways, I'm always spouting stuff off. So when I was at World of Concrete, I was on a panel for Hilti, and we had Haskell, we had McCarthy, we had Swinnerton, and DPR represented on there. And one thing that came out of that panel, not besides the great conversation and the adoption stories and the technologies we're all testing, what I think came out of it was partnership. So with my megaphone now on, I challenge the industry to be more partner oriented to our competitors. Like if we have a problem in the industry, say it's safety, like we'll use red radar. We're hitting too many things underground. Let's partner as an industry and a competitor and say, we need to change this and we need a solution for it. Who wants to help? And then let's work together, pass this thing around, figure out if this solution can actually adjust the direction that construction will go. And I think we can all be more competitive that way. We can all use that to tell the story that construction's freaking cool. And let's get some more people in here. Let's get them excited, right? Let's talk about technology. Let's use it. Let's test it. Let's break it. And then I'm going to share that story with my partner over here, and you try it. Let me know if it's the same thing. And then we're going to come back to the drawing board and go, well, that didn't work. Or, all right, we got Vita. We got rod radar. What's next? And I would also say if there's companies out there that are listening to this, grab somebody like myself that's engaged with the field, has the rapport, can talk the talk, and get out there with them. Put your boots on, walk around, hear what their pain points are, hear what excites them, and get them fired up about what they're doing, and have them tell that story about what that company is doing for them, and then bring more people into the industry to keep building. I know that wasn't 60 seconds, but I think I can put it down now.
Nah, man, I think that's great. Heck yeah, man. Well, thanks for joining us this week, Tyler.
Right on, man. My pleasure. Anytime. And I'll talk to the Hilti guys about the Plano. See what I can do for you. Get you guys to go play with some tools. I might have to meet you out there, though.
It's like Disney World. I'm so excited.
I'm like so excited.